A Look Under the Shell is an Everlook Broadcasting Company production. Welcome to this August/September episode of A Look Under the Shell. As always, I'm Dan, your moderator here. I'm joined, of course, by the two sides of the same coin, as one might say. First off, Akalix. Akalix, as always, please introduce yourself.
Hello. I am Akalix. I am TurtleWow's PR lead, community manager for the European realms, and average turtle enthusiast.
And also, I want to start doing this guild affiliation.
I currently am taking a bit of a break from raiding because I'm in my last semester here at uni, but part of that I was speedrunning with mortality.
There we go. Congratulations. I'll ask, what are you getting your degree in?
Digital marketing and e-commerce.
That makes sense. That fits. Vrograg, the community side of the coin, the player-based side, the news orc, if you will. As always, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. This is Vrograg Fishlayer speaking to you. Yes, indeed, I do regular news content, independent media, and I try to represent the community in all the efforts I attend and make, whether it's events, news functions, or just community gatherings. I try to be a person that can help facilitate people having more fun in the community and with each other.
We have fun here?
Oh yeah, it's actually mandatory, and if you don't, I will find you.
Oh. That's not a threat, that's a promise.
Well, that is actually the way of Blackwing Guard, which is my guild affiliation, and it's important. We don't do hyper fast speed runs like you might see in Mortality, but we do actually go at our own pace and enjoy the raids and each other. As we often say, fun can be mandatory.
I will quickly reintroduce myself then. Hello, I'm Dan. I run the broadcast side of what goes on Everlook. If it goes out on the radio, I have final approval of it. There's many other wonderful team members that work on things that I don't have the skills or abilities to do, but I manage the software and the broadcasts themselves, and I also raid with Nerds of a Feather as one of their few shadow priests. With that being said, we do have a wonderful guest here today that knows so much about what's coming up here in the next patch, and I am so excited to actually get to talk to them about some really fun things that we're going to be seeing soonly, hopefully here. Voji, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do on the Turtle WoW team.
So, hello, my name is Voji, but most of you probably know me from the community Discord or the server itself as Lion. And I am the lead of the 3D team for Turtle WoW. And I also work as a narrative designer, as a game designer for Turtle WoW, and sometimes as a client developer. So a lot of things. And as for my guild affiliation, it's Hard Knocks Society, the fastest guild on the server. And as I'm aware, the only guild on the server that runs 2 Naxxramas raids each week.
So wait, hold on a second. Is Hard Knock actually number one on the leaderboards right now?
For Nax, yes.
Okay, fair. I did not know that actually.
The 2 Nax runs that did I definitely just got mogged. I can't deny
that. Excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt here. I do want to point out I am doing fact checking as I often do. According to the various speed log records I see over here in first place for Molten Core is Hard Knocks. BWL is Mortality. AQ40 is Mortality, and for Nax Ramus is Hard Knocks.
Yes, that's
Nice.
what matters.
Very
Yeah,
nice.
125 is very impressive.
That is. Wow. I'm almost concerned with the amount of consumables that go into doing it that quickly.
It's just invis pos skips. I mean, let's be honest.
Oh, is that all it is?
I mean, that's a good part of it. I mean, they do have to be geared out the wazoo. They need a very good comp, and they need perfect execution to get sub 130.
I mean, they only need perfect execution. I mean, that's not that much.
Yeah. So I know things can go sideways really quickly. They made that record back in July. The most recent entry there in the top 3 is Mortality on August 15th with 134.
I love these leaderboards, and huge claps
Yeah.
to everyone that continues to be involved with them. Not just the administration of them, but all the guilds that love posting up on them. You love to see that kind of healthy, friendly competition. Right, guilds out there? Healthy, friendly competition? Right?
Of course.
If somebody
Yes.
takes our record, they will be receiving a pipe bomb.
Oh,
Well, I mean, I think that's fair to talk about healthy competition. But I've spoken to Vida, who's in charge of running it, and he's spoken to me and said that he likes having the boards up so guilds can often challenge themselves to do better. So I think even that by itself is a good reason to have leaderboards.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And it provides a whole new spectrum to rating. I love it. And speaking of rating, one thing that, and I think everyone out there wants to talk about this first and foremost. So we're opening with one of the big guns, as one might say. In rating, something that's coming up here is Karazhan 40. Now, Voji, from what I understand, you might know a thing or two about what's going into Karazhan 40. So before Akalix jumps in and tries to direct the question or conversation in any way, just as an opening question to you, Voji, what have you and your team been contributing to Karazhan 40?
So for Karazhan 40, we did a lot of things. The most noticeable that players who are following our Discord and our Twitter could see were the new tier sets, tier 3.5. For every class, we made a completely custom set of armor of 6 pieces that's completely new, completely based on our custom concept arts, our custom ideas, not based on anything Blizzard has done before. And we made it so it's fitting to the vanilla context of the game, of how the art style looks or in vanilla. I think the team did amazing job with the tier sets. I think it's the one of the best things coming with the patch. But tier sets are, of course, not all items coming in Kara 40, right? So I don't even know how many weapons there are, and I don't think if I'm allowed to say it, but there's at least a dozen of new, completely custom weapon models, which have never been seen before. We have some off-piece items that are not belonging to any tier sets, which are also completely custom. Some items, some textures are not completely new. They are reskins of some existing items, but it's also something that we made not from scratch, but based on the existing designs. And items are not all that's coming in Kara 40, right? There's also new enemies, new bosses. And I think from all the bosses, 80% have completely new, custom, unique boss model.
That's pretty impressive. Now, I'm gonna dial backwards a little bit because you mentioned especially new custom weapons and that there were quite a few of them.
Yes.
The biggest one I think everyone is anticipating, or at least assuming they're anticipating from Karazhan 40, is the Scythe of Elune. We get to see the start of the quest in Karazhan 10. And I
Yes.
think all of us are assuming we get to see the actual weapon itself from Kara 40. Can you say anything at all? And it's fine if you have to say no, or if Akalix has to jump in and try to strangle me. But is there anything you can say about the Scythe of Elune that we can hear about now?
So one thing I can say is that the quests were written by me. So
Okay,
this
okay.
this is a proof I'm doing more than just model work. And as for Scythe, the continuation of the quest that you will be able to do in new patch is absolutely very, very epic. It's an epic questline, even a legendary questline, one could say. But when it comes to the weapon itself or the thing itself, I can't really tell much. But it will have a unique model of a sort. If
Gotcha.
that's all I can say. Yeah.
That's fair. I'm going to turn quickly to Akalix because I do want to ask a follow-up. In Nax, obviously, we have the many different versions of Atiesh. Is that going to be a similar situation for the Scythe of Elune, where there's a couple different versions of it? Or is it going to be there is one, and it's going to be useful for everyone?
Honestly, that would be something that he'd be more likely to be able to answer than me. I'm not directly involved with it, so I don't know the exact details of the item.
Gotcha. Okay, and Voji, you said you can't say anything more, correct?
Sadly, no, because I'm not working with the specific values of the items and what it does. I'm just working with the models, so I don't want to spread some false information about the site.
Oh no, that's totally fair. I had because I'm still hoping I can get one on my Shadow Priest at some point. And I'm very excited, and I know a lot of people are very stoked to see the continuation of that quest line. With that being said, you mentioned you were involved in the tier sets. I will thank you for the uh, Plague Doctor outfit that we're getting. That was really fun to see on the Turtle Twitter. Any other big highlights tier set wise that you can talk about here? Anything that we should be really excited for?
Yes. So I think by now every tier set has been shown. Every tier set but Shaman has been shown. Let me correct it. And we wanted to base a lot of those tier sets on Warcraft 3 and on Karazhan Tower. So, for example, druids are getting a very unique tier set because they are not really getting a traditional shoulder pieces and like a chest, but they're getting tattoos of druids of the Talon and wings as shoulder pieces. It's completely new, completely unique. It was something that was never done before, even in newer versions of World of Warcraft. But what else? Warlocks are getting armor that's inspired by the look of the Dreadlords. Which, if you haven't seen, go to our Twitter, see how it looks. I think it's one of the coolest tier pieces we made. Paladin tier set, which is based on Turalion. I think it also looks amazing. It's gonna be almost as iconic as the Judgment set. It's the work that went into it is absolutely great. But yeah, I think those three are the highlights. But all of them are good.
All of them are really good. I was really excited when I saw the Druid set preview on the Turtle Wow Twitter. And of course, as you mentioned, I would encourage everyone to go over to the Turtle Wow Twitter page. There are so many gorgeous previews of this armor. I can't remember the warrior one off the top of my head, though. Could you tell us about the warrior one really quick?
Warrior is based on a traditional medieval knight armor, something that we felt is kind of missing in World of Warcraft, because most of the armors are very high fantasy, and there was nothing really grounded. I think it's as an inspiration we took like the armors from Dark Souls. So yeah, that's the warrior set.
So we're turning Turtle into a Dark Souls version of World of Warcraft. Understood.
Yes, Karazhan
Insert
40
meme here.
Karazhan 40 is gonna be so hard. That's gonna be basically Dark Souls.
Oh Lord. All right, one more question before I turn it over to the other folks here. You mentioned a lot of the bosses going into
Yes.
Karazhan 40 are custom and
Yes.
extremely custom. Some of it designed, from the ground up. Is there any boss in particular that you'd like to talk about that was either a particularly difficult challenge to overcome when it came to modeling and designing, or something that you're extremely proud of when it came to the bosses that you're putting into Kara 40?
As usual, I don't want to ruin the surprise. I think by now we showed 2 models. One of them was of the Keeper Narmun and the Worgen Blood Mage, who's guarding the entrance to the Tower of Karazhan. And the second one is Anomalus, the Arcane Elemental, which is the amalgamation of the ley lines, the chaotic ley lines coalescing in Karazhan. Both of those models, I'm extremely proud of them. I haven't made them myself, but I'm really proud of the modeler that made them. But there are many technical challenges coming with every boss model, because developing models for vanilla is very tricky. The tools are very, let's say, crude. So the things that we are doing with the tools that are available to us, I think they are absolutely out of this world. So yeah.
And again, incredible credit to your team as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. When I'm talking about this stuff, I want people to know that 95% of the stuff is not made by me, but by people in my team. I'm just giving the direction and guidance. The things themselves are being made by other people.
Fantastic. Vrograg, we'll have you go next here, ask any questions you'd like, and then Akalix will go ahead and close out this portion of the segment.
Just collecting my thoughts here. Wrote down a couple notes. I wanted to ask about the difficulty curve. Now, when we think about raids in vanilla era, right? There's progression, and it isn't just the stats and mechanics required. There's also a staggering up in complexity of boss mechanics. In Molten Core, everything is mostly a tank and spank, right? The most difficult one might be Major Domo. It's a little janky, some threat. You might need to polymorph something. And then by the time you get to something like AQ40 to beat Cthulhu, you need like proper positioning, perfect timing of when to burn down the boss during weakness phase. It gets a lot more complex. And I think, Nax Ramus is probably the most complex set of difficulties. So obviously, compared to retail, wow, it's nothing, right? But I would like to know, in your estimation, would Karazhan 40 continue a staggering up of more complexity as far as difficulty with mechanics, or do you feel that it kind of matches more of what already exists in vanilla?
So you are right to observe that difficulty is increasing in every raid, and the complexity is also increasing. And I think it comes from the fact that Blizzard itself was learning how to make proper raid bosses. Because Molten Core, most of the fights extremely simple, even boring to an extent. And in Naxxramas or AQ40, those fights have a lot of more nuance. When it comes to Karazhan 40, when it comes to the difficulty, it's definitely higher than Nax for later bosses. But the entrance bosses, they are very similar in complexity to Naxxramas. So there's a slow, I'd say, learning curve for the new raiders. They can enter. The first bosses are not so challenging, but as they go deeper, the complexity and the difficulty is gonna go higher.
So to compare and build off what Vrograg was asking about, would you say people stepping into Kara 40 should expect like construct wing difficulty and build up from there maybe?
You know, there's something that we really cannot amount for, and it's the because Karazhan 40 is gonna be completely new for people, right? And Naxxramas, people know how to do it for 20 years. So the biggest difficulty is gonna be actually understanding and learning the fight. So this is definitely gonna feel harder than Construct Wing. But when you understand the mechanics and understand what's going on, it's on the similar level of complexity, I think.
Okay,
beginning.
gotcha. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Vrograg, please continue.
That actually dovetails very nicely with kind of a follow up in that same vein. Now, as you mentioned, people have been doing Naxxramas in one form or another for actual decades at this point. And one thing that has been a staple for 95% of that has been things like deadly boss mods or bigwigs. Now, obviously, the team will want players to discover and figure out strategies. And I'm just curious if the team has any stance regarding um, add-on developers making add-ons for the Karazhan 40 bosses, if they want to help, if they will help, or if it's sort of something that we just want them to be completely community made.
I can't really answer this question. I have no idea. But I know some community members who are already making add-ons to help with Karazhan 40. But if the team will help, I have no idea. This is outside of my department.
Okay, that's that's very interesting to hear. I was just curious because I think a lot of people understand some of the more complex mechanics to raiding in like think of a boss encounter like Four Horsemen. You have marks going out. Each boss does a separate thing. Each one has a separate timer, and I'm sure there are very competitive teams that could probably handle something like that. But from a more casual perspective, I would certainly think that uh, an encounter like that without add-ons could really prove difficult. And I'm not sure if that was something that was sort of desired by the team or not. Obviously, if you don't know about the add-ons, that's fine. But I think it's something that will be an interesting phenomenon to watch. Much like when Emerald Sanctum came out, it was fun to watch the community gather together and figure out strategies about it. And now we have add-ons for those. But I think Karazhan 40 is going to be a whole new level of that.
To add to what I said before, the team is absolutely not against add-on usage, right? The community can use whatever they want. It's just that I don't know if the team will help with development of such tools. Maybe we. Sorry, that's just not my department, so I don't want to spread some fake information here.
And it's not like, and I'll open this up to Akalix as well if you want to answer it, buddy. I doubt the team is designing any kind of encounter and saying, oh, the community will just need to develop X or Y kind of add-on to deal with this boss fight, and then it'll be easy. I assume they're not doing that. And either of you can correct me if I'm wrong.
So we are not going to tell people what to do, basically. We do not intend to tell people how to go about, like, oh, just do this, and that will be what you need for these fights. We're going to let people figure out what fights they have on their own, as well as let people go into it independently and try to create their own solutions if they have, like, troubles trying to progress through something. If something is difficult, then, well, good. We want there to be actual, like, progression and difficulty in the update. We don't want it to be just as simple as, hey, go in, make an add-on that tells you when to press the 2 button here, and you're good. If that's what people figure out works, okay. But that's going to be entirely on the community to figure out. We are not, as the dev team, we are not going to tell people how to approach any of it.
Yeah, I think this entire topic is very fascinating to me because, as Voji was touching upon previously, the Turtle team is picking up where Blizzard left off, and back in the day, back in the aughts, uh, Blizzard was still figuring out how to develop raids, and we can see where that development has put them. Where nowadays raids, you essentially need weak auras to follow stuff, and I think to a certain extent there are probably players in the community that are worried about raid complexity getting to sort of a scale like that it might be sort of too retailish, and I don't see that as the direction the team wants to take. But on that same token, I do think there's a level of accessibility that I want to make sure the people in the community will be served, and that that's at least something that's being kept in mind.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Any other questions or thoughts, Vrograg, on Kara 40?
Yeah. Why was Shaman the only tier set that wasn't teased?
Oh my god.
Well,
Because we hate Horde.
Well,
no.
well, well.
Oh no.
I all I can say is that you guys should be patient, because for shamans we are doing something special, and we don't want to ruin the surprise by showing this too early in work in progress stage.
Okay. So every other class can have their surprise spoiled, but not shamans because they're extra special? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that what we are doing for shamans requires a lot of work, requires a lot of polish, and it's still not on a level that I'm comfortable to show to the public.
Yeah, I can at least speak to that to some extent. I have behind the scenes spoke to some of the people that do the textures and the modeling. I know that the ancient black magic client that all of you have to deal with can make basic modeling, basic textures really a pain in the butt to work with. It's not just one armor set, right? You have to make it for each race that can use it, and notoriously some of the horde races really can jank up some of the looks. So I know that is always another layer of added complexity.
Yes, basically every helmet has to be made 20 times because it's for every race and for every gender. So you have to make 20 helmets, because you really cannot have, even if, for example, some race cannot be a paladin, right? We cannot have an empty model there, because one, there's a possibility that in future some other race will become a paladin, and second, people still can use the dressing room option to preview, and we don't want to remove this from players.
Very, very pertinent question. Thank you, Vrograg.
No problem.
Let's go ahead and let Akalix have a turn here. Akalix, what would you like to make sure we talk about when it comes to Kara 40?
The thing I honestly would love to bring up is just the idea of, with how we've talked a bit about Kara 40 is going to be different in that it's being new, following the design of other stuff. I really want people to go into it with an open mind of there might be some things that feel different or feel a little bit odd because for 20 years now we've been playing the same game, we've been playing the same version, these same raids, and new is going to feel different. And we've experienced that with Lower Karazhan, we've experienced that with Emerald Sanctum, stuff like that. But that's all been stuff where you can easily get past that by the fact that it is lower tier content. This is the highest tier of content being played like the most intensive high level possible. So it's going to feel like there will be some things that feel different, and for some people it might even feel a little uncomfortable because they're not used to their WoW being a challenge in this way or that way. So I encourage everyone to go into it with an open mind, because you never know if like some things might feel odd, but it's going to be fun.
One thing that I building off that, it's give yourself, so when the patch hits, give yourself time to relearn what's going on.
Mhm.
Because as Akalix just mentioned, this is going to be a big update. If you try to jump right into Kara 40 the moment the patch comes out, without taking the time to figure out, okay, X change, Y change, new gear is available, this alternate tier set is going to do this, you're not setting yourself up for success. In fact, you're probably positioning yourself for a lot of pain and struggle without a lot of results. So, I'm sorry. Voji, if you want to respond to what Akalix brought up there, you're welcome to now.
I think what he said is absolutely right. I don't have much to add to it. Yeah.
I can at least add here, I would agree with that assessment by Akalix about taking some time to approach everything with an open mind. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure that Kara 40 won't be available immediately after the patch. I think there's going to be a period of time. Yep. There's going to be a period of time where the classes can take some time to adjust to some changes. Now, I'm on the class change council, so I've seen some of the changes that are coming. Some are going to affect more classes than others, and there definitely will be a learning curve and new metas that are going to develop. And I think part of that is by design, and part of that's going to be by accident. So as always, after a patch with any class changes, there's a fun like 1 month window where everything breaks and nothing breaks, and then it's kind of chaos for a little bit. But once it settles down, I think you know it'll be a good time to then start thinking about Kara.
I didn't actually know that there was going to be a nice interim period there. So thank goodness that was a really good choice.
It won't be a super long one, but it will likely be a week or two.
Honestly, whatever helps the community to pump the brakes a little bit, because I've heard so much talk about, okay, we're going to be ready for Karazhan 40 the moment it's ready to go. I've seen so many guilds talking about how they're preparing and making sure they're going to be ready as soon as possible because they want to get in there. They want to see the bosses. They want to start learning them as quickly as possible. Anything that helps the community kind of slow down, I think it's healthy. And anything else that anyone wants to bring up about Kara 40 here? We do have other things to talk about, so anything else that people want to bring up about Karazhan 40?
I think this would actually be Voji's a good person to ask about this. You were in charge of, or at least helped design many of the tier 3.5 sets. I believe the mage one had been teased. Mages in the teased set that we saw did have a pointy hat. I'm actually curious why, in light of the fact that Medivh, classically a cowl wearer, the mages have a pointy hat and not a cowl for that set.
Answer is simple. I like pointy hats, and
Okay.
we had way too many sets in Karazhan that had hoods, so we decided to go with the pointy hat.
Fair enough. I was I'm like, man, like Medivh feels like such a strong character. I mean, obviously you wouldn't want to give a set that's just like, oh look, it's a Medivh transmog, you know. But at the same time, I'm like, I thought there would be more drawn because Medivh is very much somewhere in the lands between like a mage and a warlock in some respects. So, you know, I always was interested about some of the inspiration for some of the other sets.
The shoulders and the rope is inspired by Medivh, but with the hat we wanted to do something a bit different.
That's fair. We are. I want to get to something else here, but we are over time on this. Obviously, Karazhan 40 is kind of the thing that everyone is obsessing about, so it's reasonable that we took so much time for this. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a short break. We're going to be right back. We're going to talk about a few different things. We're going to talk for a moment about the hack that happened, and then we will go ahead and get to a few other subjects that we want to talk about with Voji. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. More of A Look Under the Shell coming up right after this. The musical tracks for this episode have been removed due to YouTube copyright. To listen to the full episodes with music, tune in to Everlook Broadcasting with the in-game radio widget. And welcome back to A Look Under the Shell with myself, Dan, and our wonderful guests, Akalix, Vrograg, and Voji. Before we go ahead and get to the next set of discussion topics, Kara 40 ended up going a little long. That's okay. We're all real excited for it. But we do have other things we want to talk about here today. Before we get to all that, though, Akalix is just going to take a moment to talk about the hack that happened and kind of why this episode is as delayed as it was. So, Akalix, go ahead.
So everybody's probably obviously noticed that this episode, the August episode, is a little bit late. September 17th, as of the day we're recording it. And that is primarily because of the hack that we encountered on July 26th. Overall, we have basically completely returned to normal now. And beyond that, what we've done is we've taken a lot of steps to improve security internally, as well as encouraged players to increase their security by doing things like enabling two-factor authentication on their accounts, which you will get 100 tokens if you do, and changing your password to something strong, unique, and not reused, which will get you 50 passwords more, or 50 tokens more. So yeah, get yourself a good 150 tokens. Make sure that you change your password, enable 2FA. That's good for your account safety. On the team, we have it fully mandatory that you have 2FA and that you have a strong password. It is not just a request anymore, it is a requirement. And yeah, we're overall back to normal now. It took a good bit of time and effort to get everything back to normal, but we are happy to be back to work, working on the patch as fast as we can, hoping to have it out pretty soon. We have a very strong setup now. We have moved machines onto some nice, fancy, new, shiny machines. We have a lot of internal security procedures that got upgraded. We're very happy about how our backup systems worked so that we didn't have any sort of data loss. And yeah, obviously all of this will be information you will be able to read in our next newsletter email, as we will include a little incident report on the data breach then. But as of now, all of our if broken, press this button things worked pretty well, and our security is stronger than ever. So we are looking forward to hopefully having the patch out in, I'm debating if I'm allowed to say, very soon, let's just say. And yeah, looking forward to it.
I was actually a little concerned that I would have to announce that a few audio segments were missing. Had a little confusion the other day, but lucky enough, Volca has everything saved. So the few things that I wasn't able to save from it, I actually just discovered he had saved. So a huge shout out and thank you to Volca for that, and the fact that the team was able to persevere with such resilience and get back to things so quickly, I think is just a huge mark in the positive for everyone on the Turtle team. With that being said, Vrograg, any thoughts?
Yeah, I did a piece about the hack itself. A lot of people in the community wanted to know what happened, and I will say most of my investigations um, were overall pretty positive for the team. Overall, it's hard to know how any team, any organization will operate, if at all, under crisis. And I think in the end, the Turtle team did prove their mettle. And I think they did an exemplary job at communication, which really in those times is the most important. And getting back on track, I knew it would be a difficult road because of the scale and the scope of the hack. And from a community member point of view, it always is crazy to me how um, upset people can get, and I understand to a certain extent when you have people on payroll that Turtle Wow can be run like a business, but there's also the community aspect. And just like someone going that far to disrupt the community, when for most people, it's like if you don't like something, you just don't interact with it. I mean, don't get me wrong. There is plenty of critiques I could have about the Turtle team, but I don't think I would ever go so far as like endangering other people's safety or violating their privacy. I think that's another level. Now, I mean, I could certainly speak my mind, like how I consistently think time and again the horde is ignored at the development end. I mean, they get practically nothing. But I mean, we do get token things every now and then, I suppose. And technically, the horde does exist to the team, but that is what it is. But you won't see me hacking anybody.
Okay, all right. You've gone on so much about the whole anti-horde thing. We'll actually let Voji respond to that. Voji, what would you have to say about this supposed anti-horde bias?
No, it's all true.
Oh,
It's all true.
Well, there you go. You have it from the horse's mouth.
Well, to be serious, of course, there's nothing against Horde or Horde players. I think it's a bit unjust to say that Horde has more content, less content. Sorry. We have added a lot of Horde-focused stuff in the past, such like Carfancold, such as Sandmoon Village, such as the whole Amani Alor thing. We added Goblin starting area. We added Goblin towns in Powder Town. We added Sparkwater. The Alliance, to some, may have gotten more because Alliance have gotten the Numeragan reclamation facility, and they have gotten Alatolas as a proper capital city. But this is only temporary, because in the future, Horde will get Zulaman as a proper city in the northern Lordaeron. So right now, maybe there is a slight advantage to be alliance when it comes to the number of cities you have, but this is only temporary, and I assure all green friends of mine that soon there will be justice.
I'm gonna back you up a second there. I'm sorry, what's going on with Zulaman?
I think this was already announced. It's coming in a patch, Echoes of Quel'Thalas, which will be somewhere in the future, and it will come as a Horde capital in Quel'Thalas.
The trolls will finally get a
Yes.
city. They can stop living on Ogremar's couch.
Different trolls, Amani trolls, but yes, there will be a proper troll-themed city.
Well, I mean, that's great to hear. I love knowing it, and you know, in a more serious way, I do understand to a certain extent that there's a lot more established lore for a lot of the alliance races, whereas orcs technically just popped through a portal a couple decades ago, right? And trolls have lots of history, but they have a lot of infighting and tribes everywhere, and so that can be difficult to write about without sort of being exclusive. I think there's plenty more that can be done with Tauren. They have a lot of lore that can be expounded upon, but again, it hasn't really been. And so I think one of the reasons why I'll always push for more Horde development is because it's much more of an open canvas. Like there's so much more you can establish. Like I really have enjoyed genuinely the new lore that's been established about the goblins, how there's a Durotar labor union that is opposed in some ways to the other goblin power dynamics. And like that's been really fascinating to watch. And all that, the labor union really in many ways is like a custom written thing,
Yes.
I want to. I'm sorry to again keep dialing back to this, but I need to know more about what's going on with Quel'Thalas. So one thing you mentioned that we could ask about beforehand was the Thalassian Highlands. Does that have anything to do with what's going on with Zulaman? Obviously, with the proximity of it. What is actually happening up there that you can speak on?
Of course. So this is very far in the future, so I don't have much concrete information about it. But Thalassian Highlands was developed around a year ago, I think, by now. I think it came with the Christmas patch. Yes? No?
Yes.
That sounds right.
Yeah, thank you. So we decided to make Thalassian Highlands and the Blackstone Isle as an improvement to the previous static experiences, because let's be honest, they were made a long time ago, and they were no longer up to the standards that we have in current Turtle. So those areas were made from the scratch. I was responsible for Thalassian Highlands and the sculpting of it, and for the new assets that we have both in Thalassian Highlands. We have completely custom new models, and we have custom new models for the goblins. The most of the used goblin homes are completely custom, and the same thing is for the high elf houses, because of course Blizzard went with the Blood Elves, so we had to make something new and in other colors and with different architecture. This was for our team, for our 3D team. This was the first big project we had, making those new buildings. This was when the team was still pretty fresh. We still didn't have a proper pipeline. We were still learning on our mistakes. Even today, if you go to Thalassian Highlands, you can find one building that has a broken polygon, which is fixed in the next patch. But about Quel'Thalas, yes, we will be going to Quel'Thalas in the future, in few patches. The development already started. We have a lot of new models, a lot of new things. If you go to our Twitter, you can see new high elf and troll buildings. What will happen in the zone and what will be the main theme, what will be the purpose of the zone, I still cannot tell because this is way too early. But I can tell you one thing for certain: Zulaman will be a horde capital and a city you can walk in and do set your headstone and do anything you can do in Orgrimmar.
The normal city stuff, yeah.
Yes.
So having looked at whenever Turtle tweets out, I get a little ping, and when the tweet went out that had a lot of the model previews for Quel'Thalas, my jaw dropped a little bit because they were these wonderful redesigned models that looked like they were coming almost straight from Warcraft 3, that they were very reminiscent of a lot of the high elf, the Thalassian architecture in Warcraft 3.
Yes.
How much of an influence is your team taking from Warcraft 3 when it comes to Quel'Thalas?
So, Quel'Thalas in Warcraft 3, it doesn't show that much, and Warcraft 3 sometimes was using a lot of simplifications. For example, Sunwell is an actual well in Warcraft 3. They didn't have a custom model. But when it comes to the map itself, the map is based on the Warcraft 3 mission map that shows Quel'Thalas. And a lot of the buildings are also based on Warcraft 3 because we just felt it's a cool thing to have this inspiration from the beginnings of this story when Quel'Thalas was shown for the first time.
Yes. So for context, there are 4. I'm scratching my brain a little bit on this, but there were 4 Warcraft 3 missions in Quel'Thalas: Outer Elfgate, Inner Elfgate, storming the Sunwell, and then resurrecting Kel'Thuzad. If I am incorrect on that, someone is going to let me know. But there were so many wonderful tidbits throughout there, and yeah, I specifically remember the Sunwell model itself being just the generic fountain model, and really having nothing special about it whatsoever. So the fact that your team kind of realized that and is working around it, that's really nice to hear. But the fact that you're also respecting those maps and making sure, okay, there's some of that sense of scale and sizing, and I'm assuming positioning in some capacity. That makes me really excited. I'm very excited that that there's a lot coming into that. What else can you tell us about what you all are doing?
For Quel'Thalas, maybe I'll skip for now because it's way too early. But for the next patch, I have something very exciting which was already shown. But this is something I'm very proud of, and it's the dungeon extensions. So in the Tower of Karazhan patch, we are not only adding content for the raiders and for endgame, but we are also changing the leveling dungeons. You all know, you all done a million times, but we are not changing the existing parts. We're only building on top of them. So, for example, in Dead Mines, we have a small area where the Defias chemists are experimenting with Zanzil potion. Some players may know that the Defias was experimenting with Zanzil mixture to create the drones that are used in the rogue class quests. In the Deadmines also we have expanded Harvest Golem Factory that expands upon the quests we made with Harvest Golems in Westfall. In Welling Caverns, you have an area where the roots have overgrown through the whole cave, and you discover new places, new forms of life that emerged in this place. You have a small area where the Colcard centaurs came from the surface and are now occupying a small portion of Welling Caverns. In Scarlet Citadel, in Scarlet Monastery, in the graveyard section, which we felt was very underused, you have now a prison where a Death Knight from Naxxramas is being held. In the Scarlet Library, you have monks in the Sanctum of the Feast. So we added a lot of new exciting areas to existing vanilla dungeons, and we hope players can discover them and enjoy them as much as we enjoyed making them.
So before we talk about all that, let's talk about you confirming Scarlet Citadel release date for a moment.
Boy.
I'm sorry. This was a bit of a
What
slip.
have we done? What have we done?
I mean, Scarlet Enclave is still there, and I think the attunement quest is still out there.
It's still active, yeah.
Guys,
I have the attunement.
please don't focus on this. This was a genuine mistake.
Fair enough. So we've seen a lot of those previews of the dungeon expansions, and even seen like to the point of the overhead maps. I believe those were actually tweeted out. How difficult was it to go through and update these dungeons with these new sections, these new branches?
So it's easier than making something from scratch completely, because you already have a team, you already have like the general idea how the area should look, you already have a set of textures that are used, but it's challenging in a different way, because you have to make sure that you don't overshadow the existing dungeon, that the area you make fits perfectly. And from technical point of view, you have to make sure that you don't break anything by adding something on top. And this was kind of tricky, especially in the dungeons where you have water, because the tools we have are made for Wrath of the Lich King, and Wrath of the Lich King uses completely different water system. So we have to do a lot of workarounds to make it work in vanilla. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Vrograg, anything you'd like to ask about the dungeon expansions coming in 1.17.2?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I've always been happy that the team has not just done vertical progression, but has done horizontal progression, adding things to what's already there. And I guess one of my big questions here is, from the narrative point of view, is the team hoping to add to existing stories, or are they trying to add new stuff that maybe wasn't explained well or didn't really have a place anywhere else in the zone, right? So you mentioned Kolkar are going to be in Wailing Caverns. Now there are Kolkar, I think it is the Kolkar tribe that are in the Barrens, and there are some quests to do them. But does this expand on the lore, or is it more designed to be standalone? Like, hey, here's like an offshoot. And I don't know if you can comment to that.
So there's both. There are quests that expand on existing lore, as I mentioned with the Zanzil mixture in Deadmines. But we also have some completely new custom stuff, as I said, for example, with the Death Knight in Scarlet Monastery Graveyard.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting, by the way. Like the concept of going to Scarlet Monastery and finding a captured Death Knight, you know. I mean, there's already a lot of interesting storylines in Scarlet Monastery, but like adding that does sound very interesting.
I think he starts at like 10% HP, so warriors can go ham on him.
like a Veilstraz fight.
Yes, he's already very hurt because he was tortured by the Scarlet Crusade.
Oh
And
no,
also,
I almost feel bad.
I don't. Also, adding something to Graveyard because I think you're right in your analysis that Graveyard is kind of ignored, for better or worse.
Well, it does have Grave Moss.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Anything else? I do want to ask a follow up, but Akalix and Vrograg, do you want to ask anything else about the dungeon expansions? I will take that as a no.
Will this add at least 4 more chapters to the Harvest Golem mystery?
I don't think it adds any, but one of the chapters is going to be changed because it makes more sense now to kill the golem inside instead of some random goblin.
I do have something to ask. This might be a little too specific, but with class changes, obviously I can't speak specifically, but if there are classes that are getting new abilities or are getting new features, are any of those abilities or features going to be somehow featured in any of the dungeon extensions? So, for instance, let's say, you know, Shaman gets some type of new shield, which, you know, may or may not be true, doesn't really matter. But let's say the book to learn it, would that be in a dungeon? Like, is there going to be any integration with the dungeon extensions and class changes?
Yes, but in a different form. So the dungeon extensions are for very early level dungeons. It would feel kind of weird to put something that can affect your ability that you have for, like, let's say level 60 there. So we have some new relics in the dungeon extensions for shamans, paladins, and druids. Relics that start from level, even I think the earliest start from level 20. So it's some new items that are kind of tied to the new spells.
That will be a welcome comfort for the hybrid classes that largely for majority of their leveling just look at that empty slot and go, what is this for?
Yes.
What do I do here?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear, because that's definitely a spot where I think, you know, generally leveling, you want to teach a class everything that their class does more or less, and just getting an item slot not until you're 60 just kind of feels weird.
Yeah, I strong agree. One thing that the roadmap teased that we saw ages ago that confirmed that we were going to the Burning Crusade 100%.
Yes.
Also,
Next week.
Also mentioned future new dungeons that weren't raid or top tier necessarily, but were going to be spread out throughout the leveling experience. On the subject of dungeon expansions and new dungeons, is there anything you can tell us about those coming up?
Yeah. Yes. So in the patch Hammers and Talons 1.18, so a few months from now, we will be adding 2 new leveling dungeons. One of them is called Dragon Maw Retreat, and the second one is called Stormrod Castle. And they have completely custom made 3D models that are amazing, that are huge, and are a place worth exploring and going out of your way during your leveling journey to get there and see what they are about. But when it comes to the details, I shouldn't talk too much because it's still a bit early.
Sure. What were the names of those again? Dire Maul Retreat?
Sorry, Dragon Maw
Dragon Maul Retreat.
Retreat.
Okay.
Yeah, Dragon Maw Retreat and Stormrod Castle.
Stormrod Castle.
Stormrod, yeah.
Stormrod. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
I can easily guess where a Dragonmaw retreat might be. Stormrot Castle, though, that one's got me scratching my head and wondering what's up.
It has rot in the name, probably Forsaken, right?
Not rot. It's sorry. I'm not sure if this is the correct pronunciation. I'm gonna send you how it's actually pronounced.
Sure.
Ooh, maybe it's rock with a C.
You guys can read it.
Okay.
Okay. Listen, that's on English. That's not on you.
Yep. Yeah, you did fine. In the English language there's about 5 different ways. So it's Storm Road, Storm Rock, Storm Rot, Storm Rot. There's so many ways they can sound the exact same. So
This is a castle for shamans, clearly.
it's Storm Rot, like iron rot, just for the listeners' clarity there. Can you tell us anything about this dungeon? Literally anything, like location, who's there, any kind of generic details.
It's in a new zone that's coming in Hammers and Talons. It's an island, and it's an island that was present in Warcraft 2.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
I see you gave him too much.
No.
Now he knows.
Okay. Okay. I see what's going on. Never mind. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know why your reaction was like this, but if it was a no of being disappointed or being so...
Oh no, I'm excited. Because, okay, so if we're talking about Warcraft 3, there's 3 different locations that it could be that are not currently being put in game that I can name off the top of my head. If it's...
I think I said Warcraft 2.
Yes.
It's for Warcraft 2, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, I'm thinking of the Warcraft 2 map. I might have said Warcraft 3. There are 3 different locations I can think of because Tol Barad is already being put in. I'm assuming it's not going to be on Tol Barad. I'm not going to say the 3 locations that it could because one of them is a dead giveaway. And I don't want to spoil anything. But if it's the 3rd island I'm thinking of, I'm going to lose my shit. I can already confirm that. So we're just going to move on before I lose my shit. Next thing I want to talk about, and you mentioned a lot of the model work that you and your team have done. New spells and animations that are coming into play here. New stuff that characters are going to be able to look forward to when it comes to how they play their game on a regular basis. What can people look forward to with that?
So this is a part of the class changes update because you couldn't have new spells and new abilities without new effects, right? And I think here I will be able to please Horde players because I think the coolest effects that we made are for shamans and their new abilities. One of them was already showed. It's called Lightning Strike, and it's a melee attack that does some physical and some nature damage. And the spell effect we made is basically you do a melee swing, and then a lightning strikes the enemy from above, dealing the nature damage portion of the attack.
Was the animation put in to differentiate it from Storm Strike?
Yes, because if you look at vanilla abilities, they are almost always very clear what you are doing, and they are also pretty self-explanatory. Like, you see a mage casting fireball, you know it's gonna be fireball, right? You see warrior cleaving, you know the warrior is cleaving. There's no second guessing here. So we wanted to convey the same thing with our new abilities, that they all are different and they all can be recognized from afar. So you don't think for hours what is being cast, but you instantly can recognize it, which is important for PvP and for PvE too.
Yeah, I think I had talked about this previously, like during the break, where there's a lot of animations and things that are in specifically the shaman class that are a little underwhelming. And some of that is obviously not the Turtles team's fault. That's from the ancient devs who some things on shaman felt a little rushed. And so, you have three very definite shocks you do. There's no animation except for the burst effect that happens, right? And fire is easy to tell because you get a debuff, but like Earth Shock is really quick, and the only way you'd know it is if your spell got interrupted. So I'm glad that that's a consideration, because there are certainly some classes, not just Shaman, that have abilities that are kind of hard to see telegraphed.
I mean, Earth Shock you still see. It's an instant, so you cannot see it before it's cast. But when it hits the target, it has a specific effect. So you still should know that it's an Earth Shock.
Yeah, you can hear it too. Like when you hear it hit,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, my health is at half. I know what happened.
Yes, exactly. So for new abilities, a lot new spell effects, but I cannot get into too much detail without spoiling class changes. Every class gets some new effects. Druids get a lot of them. Paladins also get quite a few because they are getting some changes that require it. But yeah, as for new animations, I think warriors will be very happy to hear that Slam no longer makes their character just sit in no animation state, and now you will actually cast the slam, and you will see how the character is
is there like
slamming
a
the weapon.
wind up to it now?
Yes.
Oh, I like that.
So because right now when you cast slam, you just stand and
you stand
do
there
nothing.
and you watch your cast bar and you wonder why you're a warrior at that point.
Yes, exactly. And now you raise the weapon over your head and then slam with it when the cast ends.
I have to ask, because I know how notoriously difficult animations specifically are. Is that an animation that was unused or borrowed from something else that's being thrown in, or was that actually designed? Because if it was designed, that is nuts.
No, it's not made from scratch. We kinda don't have the technology to do so. We can, but it's very time consuming and very hard to do properly. It's a repurposed other animation that we found that's fitting very, very well with Slam.
That's legit. Me being the selfish Shadow Priest I am, is there anything you can tell us about Shadow Priest animations? Anything new or updated or cool we'll be able to look forward to?
No.
Okay, fair enough.
I actually do have a question that I think I might have brought up in other places before, but I think this is something that would specifically serve the shaman community pretty well. There are three distinct cultures that interact with shamanism in the Horde, and all of their totems look like Tauren totems, for the lack of a better term. There are models for troll totems already in the game. Has there been any thought about giving, whether it's like a store thing or it's like some kind of a quest you can do to give different models to shamans?
At some point, it was discussed, but I have to check if this will be implemented or not. So, no promises, but I know there was a point where it was discussed.
Yeah, and I say that as a Tauren shaman player. I love the concept of each kind of shamanism having like their own kind of take on it. Because the other hybrid class that gets tons of cosmetic things is druids, and just about every form they have has like 6 different colors and shapes and designs. So it's I'm sure paladins probably feel that a little bit too, being the other hybrid class and being like, Kind of wish I could look a little different.
Yeah. It's druid bias, actually.
Yeah, if anything, objectively, there is the most custom things for druids, and to be fair, druids have a lot going on, but yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Vroger and I have been bogarting a lot of the time on this subject here. Akalix, anything that you want to bring up or ask Voji about when it comes to spell effects or new animations or models coming in?
When are we going to add it to the donation store to be able to spend 100 tokens and have my Night Elf flip every time they jump?
So I advise against it because this is completely client side. So when you see your Night Elf jump in a flip, the other people don't see it flipping. So
Game is
yeah.
unplayable.
0 out of 10 stars. I'll be uninstalling later. Anything else you want to talk about when it comes to spell animations or anything like that, Voji?
Not really, without spoiling too much about class changes.
That's
So,
fair. We gotta hold off on that. As much as I want to
Let's
dig
go.
into that, we gotta hold off.
But all I can say is that people who will try out new spells will also see new effects for those spells, which is, I think, it's very cool to also feel different in gameplay and also look different when you are playing. So yeah.
I can't wait. Can't wait. So to close here, you've mentioned multiple times across multiple subjects here over this episode your team and the team that
Yes.
you have that's working on models and animations. Go ahead and tell us more about the team because they deserve as much credit as anyone else does. Tell us about how you guys came together. Talk about, you mentioned your workflow, the way that was honed in. Tell us about how your team has really come together to get this work done.
Yes. So this was a pretty big journey for all of us, but it all began like I think a year and a half ago when just before Hyjal release. I was talking with the lead designer about adding something more to Hyjal because Hyjal is well known for its section of tunnels that's underneath Hyjal, Barrow Deeps. But we realized that we don't really have means and people who can make this happen because we don't have a model that looks like Barrow Deeps. And by that point, we had some custom models, but all of them were simple recolors or some very minor changes were made to those models because we didn't really have a proper tool. Fortunately for us, there was a tool that was existing that was pretty fresh back then. WoW Blender Studio, and it's a Blender add-on plugin that allows for editing World of Warcraft specific 3D model formats. There are two of them. There's WMO and there's M2. WMOs are like those huge buildings, dungeons, caves, everything that's basically player can enter. And M2s are creatures, weapons, armors like shoulders and helmets, props in the world, trees, foliage, so a lot of smaller stuff. And fortunately, this plugin allows editing both of them. But there's a small issue because there's no documentation how this plugin really works. When you work in actual game dev, not modding, game engines have a lot of documentations, right? So if you have some issue with something, you can just search the documentation, or when it comes to Unreal Engine or Unity, you can even ask the developers of said engine and they will help you Here, unfortunately, it's not that simple. You have to figure it out yourself or by asking other community members. And I was pretty bummed out that we cannot have barrow dips. So I started learning it myself, how to use this plugin, even though I'm not really specialized in 3D modeling. And by very hard work and talking with a lot of people and spending a lot of time and wasting a lot of time, I managed to crack this plugin. I managed to understand how it works in basic terms, like how to port the model. Even this was a problem in it in the beginning, but after some time I got it. But there was a problem that I didn't have time and resources to really make models. So we started recruiting. So we made a Discord announcement that we are looking for 3D modelers, and we got a lot of them to come up and they all wanted to learn, but none of them had previous experience in modeling in World of Warcraft, right? So after a lot of blood, toil, and sweat, we got like 3 people that survived the the tutorials, that survived how unwieldy, how crude the tools are, and we started forming the team, the 3D team with them. And in the 1.5 year since then, a lot of people joined. Some people left, some people took breaks, but we managed to form a very solid, very strong 3D team that can pump out models very quickly with amazing quality and amazing designs. I think by now we have over 15 modelers. Some of them are working basically full time. Some of them are working in their free time when they want to. But the team itself is amazing, and if they are watching this, I want to give them like my whole love and my gratitude for being that amazing to work with.
That's wonderful. That it's really nice to see that you all formed together out of this need to make sure there's this life in the game. That's really wonderful to hear.
And thanks to this, it allowed us to expand turtle development insanely. Like now we can make custom raids, custom dungeons, custom everything, basically, thanks to the modelers. Because before we were really not allowed to do things that weren't present in other versions of WoW, like for example Green Battle, right, which will come somewhere in the future. If we wanted to use it back then, we would have to use Cataclysm Green Battle, but now we have completely custom, completely self-made Green Battle, which is absolutely amazing, and I can't wait to show it to people.
Absolutely. Before we go ahead and close up shop, Vrograg, anything you want to address?
I am so happy to hear that there has been such a breakthrough with making new models. And as I understand it, there are modelers and there's also people in charge of making textures and
Yes.
like the actual color palettes. Are those also part of people of the team? I just wanted to see if that was like part of the 15 people.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, because you know it's not just making a model; it's also making it look good, right? And I think that the team that you are directing does a great job. I've seen many of the new models, whether they're in game or like in teaser photos, and I've always been impressed. And of course, as someone who's always a big fan personally of do-it-yourself mentality and sort of a more punk rock aesthetic of just like, all right, well, we'll just figure out how to do it. and we'll make it our own. And I love to hear that, and I'm so glad that that's really been. It wasn't just like a breakthrough. It was like, huh, that's cool. Instead, it's like the Turtle team wants to go in this direction and make it their own.
Yeah.
Akalix, anything else you'd like to close with?
It's one of those things that a lot of people don't really see that goes on behind the scenes, because obviously people just see, well, I log into the game and I play the game. It's not that complicated, right? But all the people behind like this team and a bunch of the other teams that just don't really go seen, big shout outs to them, because it's a lot of hours of painstakingly grinding out models, like in programs I have no idea how you would even use. So big props to them. It's stuff that without them, the magic could not happen. So
Absolutely. Alrighty. Bit of a long episode. I know, bit of a long episode, everyone, but we had a lot to talk about as we were off for a little bit longer than anticipated. Next month, hopefully, we get to drop some bombshells. Maybe. We'll see. Potentially. Soon TM.
They're not going to say.
Oh, no. Absolutely not. But I can hope. I can hope at least. Until then, though, I hope you all enjoyed the show. This has been one more look under the shell. We'll see you next month.